News going live in 3, 2, 1. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We're going to go over some really important stories again in the last 24 hours, and of course, there is a lot going on. U.S. buzzes China's military satellites in an unfolding space rivalry. So, if you haven't seen some of the things that have come out in the last 3 days alone, like a brand new soldier that's going to be put into place that is a space soldier. They're talking about how there's going to essentially be a war in space. And of course, everybody else has been talking about hotels and alien bases and everything else. But of course, an American military satellite was reportedly buzzing its Chinese counterparts as China rapidly advances in a new space race to challenge U.S. leadership in this domain. It says that the Space Force established in 2019 during the first administration, of course, was absolutely vital. One of the missions to the new service branch was protect and defend U.S. interests in space, including satellites. Now, the reason when this got put into place, everybody laughed at it. They called the Space Force a joke because, of course, this president in his last term had pretty much every media up against him. But when he put it into place, essentially it was, this walking joke to the point where they made a show called Space Force that was a comedy, right? But after he left, they didn't remove this branch, and that is because now it has become one of the most important. As far as what China has been doing, they have been launching rocket after rocket after rocket, including some so big that they are, they brought up their own ISS up there, which others call a weapon. As far as what they are doing in space, they are essentially figuring out ways how to track our stealth ships, how to track our stealth jets by the exhaust. They are essentially planning on taking over parts of land across the planet. So again, it is very important arena for them to be competing in. And over the last 4 years, it seems like our administration was, basically by the wayside. China, which has several ambitious space programs, including a space station and a manned mission to the moon, was spotting using satellites to conduct dogfighting maneuvers. The U.S. Space Force reported in March, practicing orbit operations from one satellite to another. We talked about that and of course, how they were bouncing up and down out of the atmosphere. I know that our entire audience doesn't believe all of the stuff that they're saying, but again, you have to remember the claims that they're making to us as civilians in all of our countries really do matter, because if they're telling you something, it usually has a purpose behind it. If they're setting you up to say that, something is going on in space, then there's most likely going to be an event that they claim that came from space, right? I mean, obviously, we've seen a lot of events we think came from space, but what about in the future when we have every single news channel covering a 2001 type event, but it's caused from something in space? That's the kind of thing that I think is going to happen at some point. Now, before we move on, I'm going to talk about Israel, of course, talking about the Strip, and Bali, the island. The main story tonight, again, an island that they say the underwater cables might have been cut. We're talking about, all of the power for an entire island popping out. But first, I do want to remind you, there is a protection against different weapons that our adversaries have, including the EMP strike. Again, an EMP strike is something that all of our adversaries have. Highly recommend that you guys get protection on at least your car so you'll be able to get home to your family. Again, the EMP shield is a really simple device, but it is extremely powerful. It can ground the signal of either an EMP strike or a Carrington-level event from the sun, so this covers both, in less than 500 trillionths of a second. So go over to marfuglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF, especially since you can utilize not only our stacking $50 off discount, but you can also get the Liberty Sale discounts as well. All right, let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fuggle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, first of all, I do want to go back to the satellites here for a second, because we obviously have some of the things that are coming out. They're at least telling us that they are essentially China and Russia in the last couple months. We've seen these stories where they're either buzzing our satellites or tracking our satellites. Again, what do you think they're doing when they're doing that, right?
Exactly. I mean, look, the satellite warfare is the new game, especially as it relates to the fact that everything on the ground is tied back to those satellites. And if you can disable or target and attack a satellite or multiple satellites, then you have an advantage in warfare.
And I think it's funny that they scoffed and everybody made it a big deal that Elon was going to be brought into a meeting about a war with China. If we were at a war with China, especially considering all of the space related ventures that both countries have right now, it absolutely makes sense that Elon, one of the owner proprietors of SpaceX, that has all of these Starlink satellites, satellites that have not only been used for Ukraine at points, but also used for hypersonic speed missile detection. It makes absolute sense that he would be pulled in on this. And if he's getting pulled in, if memos are going out to staff members, if they're setting up a Golden Dome space-based system, and they just now announced a 40D soldier, if you guys haven't heard about that, again, it's pretty crazy. They're adding a brand new soldier to the Space Force, and it has an entirely crazy different job description. They're going to be a ground-based controller of some sort of weapon in space. So again, that we don't know all the details about, but you can probably guess it's almost like a drone operator. In my opinion, it's going to be like a drone operator, only they're operating a space-based satellite weapon or something. But again, all of this is happening, so it makes perfect sense that all of this is about to take place. So yeah, I think something very big is coming. So I hope that people have their wits about them and see what all of us are seeing already. I mean, we've seen this for a long time building. And then Dex, do you want to go over Israel said to okay the expanded strip op?
Well, it's not just that; it's a lot that's happening right now in Israel. So they had an attack from Yemen. They had to take down some drones from the sky. They then started to announce that they were planning readying for new targets in Syria, and then they started to launch on Syria. So now they have been striking and targeting the Hama countryside there. And then there was, I guess, a baseless report, as Netanyahu says it, coming out of Egypt, saying that Israel had rejected a truce offer. And then the IDF is now saying that, they are basically expanding the strip operation, and they're calling up reservists. So that means they're, expanding and getting ready to, go in even more.
Yeah, so with everything that's going on with Israel and Iran, obviously there's a lot of side things that are happening right now. There's things in other countries that have to do with even other countries' conflicts. All of them are interconnected. It's like this weaving doily of disaster. I like that. A doily of disaster. I'm using that. Don't steal it. And then Bali plunged into mass island-wide blackouts as tourists are issued frightening warning. I hate how they write some of these, because after you read the whole article, so you understand this is a huge deal. But the frightening warning is that it may take 3 days to get this back up. What they're thinking it is, I think, is more frightening, and it's something that we have to worry about here. Again, the entire island of Bali in Indonesia has been hit by a blackout that holidaymakers and locals have been warned might take up to 36 hours for authorities to fix. Power outages impacted thousands of homes, businesses, and resorts, has said that it is investigating the sources of the power outages. Now, some of the clips that they show is essentially people on the street in these little markets. I have never been to Bali. Some of you may have been to vacation there, but it looks like some of the markets, the very tight-knit markets are just all down. As far as all of the traffic signals all went out at once. So you literally had the entire island of Bali essentially have a traffic stop up. The police, they said that they basically sped into action as fast as they could to direct traffic. But while you have them all trying to figure out traffic and how to, keep everything running, then what do you have as far as crime? Like, I wonder how many crimes are going to be committed during this. You've got a bunch of rich tourists, and now all of the power goes off for 24 to 36 hours. That sounds like, to me, like it would be the local criminals, like, wet dream. So Dex, did you think about that? Like, I bet they won't even report half of the stuff that goes on tourists are probably going to be robbed. Stores are going to be
Well,
broken
yeah, I
into.
mean, it was that way in Spain. I'm not saying it was a whole lot of looting, but I mean, everybody was sort of panicked. It was an overwhelming amount of panic when the power is out. It's one thing if it's out for a few hours. It's one thing if it's out in a small area because of a storm. It's another thing when it's, the entire, city or the entire population, in this case, and almost the entire island or a big chunk of the island was out. But I think, the scarier part is like, what's the cause? And they're saying it's, potentially a supply from the underwater cable.
Yeah, and we just talked about in the last month. China is one of the first countries. Everybody knows that a lot of them have underwater sea cable cutters, but China actually showed theirs. And you have a lot of events that directly tie in or piss off China, and then all of a sudden you have an island like this lose this. Now, also, Bali could be completely separate, and you have something like this done as kind of like a shot over the bow, like, hey, just a reminder, we can cut underwater cables, or it's a practice run just to practice cutting the underwater cables. They've done it by dragging anchors. They've also done it with their specific underwater cutting machine or their device, right? So something like this is somewhere else. So many Americans I know, they would see something like this, they would just skip over and read over that page. But understand that this is interconnected in that doily of disaster. And I promise you that something way bigger is going on, that if we, had all of the briefings that these intelligence people and in the Situation Room, I guarantee you they're seeing the full picture. And the full picture is way more scarier than anybody can imagine. So I hope that people are prepped, because something like this can happen to us. And you look at this in correspondence, what's coming out right now? They're talking about specifically satellite warfare. Why? Well, why would the satellites be targeted? To knock out communications. What else would be targeted? Our underwater sea cables between us and Europe to cut our actual landline or physical line to Europe. These two things are happening at the same exact time, and people aren't putting that together. I would highly, highly recommend to have your ducks in a row. We'll see you over on Marfoogle TV. In fact, over there, we're going to cover even more. We're going to talk about the port stuff, and we're going to talk about both opinions on this. Of course, you have now it's been politicized as well. But again, from a couple of the people I've talked to, you do have a huge, huge downtick of stuff coming into the port. Obviously, now people are fighting over it because now it's being used and politicized against the president. But is this par for the course? Are we going to run into stuff? Are people going to go panic buy stuff that we make here? Like, that's the stupid part. The more it picks up steam, and over the last 4 days, I'll show you. A lot of people are talking about this now. A lot of people are getting scared. A lot of people are going and looking at the ports. A lot of people are looking at the wrong ports that are not normally empty. And they're saying, oh my God, it's empty. It's been empty for 5 years. But the ones that I do know about, they are. There's a lot less coming in. So again, we'll talk about that here in a second. And again, there's still a lot in China, just not a lot here. We'll talk about that here in a second. If you want the full bibliography for today's show, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com. You can find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we showed you here today right on the website. All right, thank you guys. We'll see you in just a few minutes.